And the great enemy of human success is the comfort zone. In this comfort zone, you're comfortable. Now, you may not be happy with the amount that you're earning, but you just become comfortable with that amount. The only way that you can increase your income is to change your self-concept in relationship to income. And what we know is that your overall self-concept is determined by your self-concept in all the areas of your life that you consider important. We also know this, is that your self-concept is made up of 3 parts. Again, this is basic behavioral psychology. Number 1, it's made up of your self-ideal. Now, your self-ideal, like 3 wedges of a pie, consists of your values, it consists of your ideals, it consists of your goals, it consists of your hopes, it consists of your dreams, it consists of all those things that are inside you. And what we know is that there's a direct relationship between how clear you are about your goals and ideals and your self-ideal. What do we know about top people? Top people are clear about what they believe in, and they don't compromise their values. What do we know about little people, weak people? Is they're very confused about their values and they compromise them for the slightest advantage. So my point is that people with a very clear self-ideal are much stronger and more powerful people than people who are unclear about their ideals. The second part of your self-concept is called your self-image. And there's hundreds of books on self-image psychology, but basically what they say is your self-image is the way you see about yourself and the way you think about yourself. Your self-image is called your inner mirror. Whenever you go to do anything, you check this mirror like a stage performer checking the mirror before they go on the stage. Before you go in to see somebody in a sales call, you just kind of check your inner mirror to see, how do I perform in sales calls? And your performance on the outside is largely determined by your self-image. 1-to-1. Remember that ratio. The third part of your self-concept is your self-esteem. Now, your self-esteem is the most important part of all. This is the emotional part of your personality. This is what I call the nuclear reactor core. This is the energy source. This is the power in the human personality. Your level of self-esteem determines your level of vitality, energy, personality, sense of humor, creativity, personal strength, influence, persuasiveness, and so on. So your self-esteem is critical, and your self-esteem is defined as how much you like yourself. How much you like yourself is the measure of your self-esteem. How much you like yourself. Here's an interesting point, is whenever your self-esteem, your self-image, your personal performance is consistent with your self-ideal, the person that you would most like to be, your self-esteem goes up. Whenever you do anything that is consistent with the best person you could be, you feel happy, you feel proud, you have greater self-respect, you have more energy. Whenever you do something that's not like you blow up, you get mad, you swear, you do something that, that's not consistent with the best person you could be, your self-esteem takes a hit. But when you start to act in a way consistent with the best that you know, your self-esteem goes up. Well, here's the most important part, going down here, is we say that the most powerful words you'll ever learn are the words, I like myself. I like myself. Whenever you say the words, I like myself, your overall self-concept goes up. Your self-image improves and your self-ideal clarifies. And as your self-image, as your self-concept goes up, your performance and your behavior in every part of your life goes up as well. They say the flip side of self-esteem, like a coin, is called self-efficacy in psychology. And self-efficacy is how competent you are. So whenever you do something well, your self-esteem goes up and you like yourself more. And the more you like yourself, the better you do. And the better you do, the more you like yourself. And the more you like yourself, the better you do. And you get onto an upward spiral. So what we found is the most powerful words that you can use prior to any event of importance are the words, I like myself. Say it. Say, I like myself. I like myself. Now say it like you mean. Say, I like myself. I like myself. Now you notice the first time you say it, and I went through this many, many years ago, first time you say it, you may feel a little uncomfortable. Some of you didn't say it with too much enthusiasm. You said it because everybody else was saying it, but you felt a little bit guilty, like undeserving. Like that's, like a little bit, it's not quite right. Well, that's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal. What it means is somebody's programmed some kind of defect into your computer, a piece of negative information that's inconsistent with liking yourself. And what happens, it's called cognitive dissonance in psychology. The new message hits the old garbage and goes bang, like a bang, and it creates a stress. And the stress is felt like a feeling of discomfort. Are you with me so far? So whenever you say the words, I'm the best. I'm the best. I like myself. I like myself. When you say these words, the first time you say them, you may feel a little uncomfortable because they may feel to be, not consistent with reality. But the more you repeat them, it's like driving a pile in a river. The more you repeat them, you drive them deeper and deeper into your subconscious mind, and gradually these words will reprogram all the old garbage in there and blow it away, almost like a psychological roto-rooter. So you get up in the morning saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. You go through the day, I like myself, I like myself. And when we're in business, our self-esteem is taking a hit all the time, like a tire or an inner tube losing air, so you have to keep pumping it up. I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Somebody's rude, slams down the phone, shows you to the door, waste your time. I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. You've got to keep yourself up. You make it a game. Now, I don't suggest you say this in crowded washrooms or elevators, but just say it to yourself on a regular basis, because the idea of liking yourself is the purest and most positive statement you can give from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, because it's like mummy's kisses. It makes everything okay. It takes all the pain away. It's impossible to like yourself and feel negative. It's impossible to like yourself and be angry. It's impossible to like yourself and be worried. And your mind can only hold one thought at a time, positive or negative. So if you keep repeating, I like myself, 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 what happens is eventually it becomes a habit of thinking. You wake up in the morning and say, I like myself. Throughout the day you say, I like myself. Somebody's rude or difficult to you, say, it doesn't bother me, I like myself. And you act like it. Now initially, it'll be like getting fit. Your muscles will be stiff, your emotional muscles will be stiff. But after a while, it starts to become automatic. And whenever you have any kind of negative event, you can immediately zap it by saying, oh, wait a minute, I like myself. Now, here's the most wonderful thing. The more you like yourself, the more you like other people. And the more you like other people, the more they like you right back. And what do you think is the foundation of self-confidence? How much you like yourself, self-esteem. The more you like yourself, the higher your level of self-confidence. The more you like yourself, the less you feel fear, failure, and rejection. The less you're worried about negative events and negative experiences. You fall on your face, you pick yourself up. People fall down, people make mistakes, life goes on. So in other words, things don't bother you, because you actually develop almost like a Teflon cover around your emotions, and you become a completely positive person. Remember in the 60s there's that poster that says, I do not love you for yourself, but for the way you make me feel when I am with you. Do you know the most powerful thing you can do in your relationships with other people is to make them like themselves? Is to say things and do things with them, not manipulatively, but positively, that cause them to like themselves. Compliment them on the way they look. Thank them for being punctual. Praise them for their accomplishments. Say little things, nice things that make me feel happy. Say thank you. It causes people to like themselves. If you go through the world, sort of like a hummingbird going from flower to flower, making people feel important, making people like themselves, you'll be one of the most popular people there is. Everybody will be happy to see you. Everybody will brighten up when they know you're coming. Everybody will brighten up when you walk in the office, because whenever they see you, you make them feel good about themselves. But you can't give away something you don't have. You can't make other people feel good about themselves unless you feel good about yourself. But the wonderful thing is, if you really like yourself, you spontaneously and naturally do and say the things that cause other people to feel good about themselves. You don't have to think what I'm going to say, how am I going to do this. You don't have to do a damn thing. All you have to do is just stand there and like yourself, and you'll automatically do and say the right things. You'll attract into your life wonderful people. Your expectations for yourself will be positive. You'll believe that good things are happening to you. You constantly reprogram your subconscious mind. You develop a positive emotional habit of high self-esteem and high self-confidence. So if you change your thinking, you change your life, and you can change it because you can change your life by changing what you say to yourself. And when you talk to yourself in a positive way, your self-confidence goes up, your self-esteem goes up, your relationships improve, your sales will go up. Direct relationship between self-esteem and sales success. Direct relationship between self-esteem and raising happy, healthy children. High self-esteem parents raise high self-esteem kids. High self-esteem adults meet and marry by the law of attraction other high self-esteem adults and have high self-esteem relationships where everybody's happy. Are you with me so far? So we say, okay, we all agree with this. We should all have high self-esteem. Well, what is the problem? Well, the problem is negative emotions. And the greatest single challenge we have are negative emotions and negative habit patterns. Positive habit patterns are joy, love, spontaneous humor, happiness, compassion, and so on. But negative emotions are the greatest enemy of all. We can only improve our lives to the degree to which we free ourselves from our negative emotions. And the good news is that no child is born with any negative emotions. All negative emotions are learned from infancy onward. And that's a good thing, because if it was not true, then we could not get rid of them. Because if it was part, like our eye color or our hair color or our height, we couldn't get rid of it. But it's not genetic, it's not fixed, it's learned, and it is therefore relearnable or unlearnable. You can, in other words, just reach in and short circuit the negative emotion circuits which we've learned. So here's some of the things that we know about negative emotions. And when I began studying this, I spent something like 5 years studying this, and it changed my whole life. Is we know that negative emotions are the greatest single obstacles to success. They're the things that hold us back more than anything else. And let me show you where negative emotions, the negative emotions tree. This is the negative emotions tree. This is my own creation, by the way. Here's the trunk, here's the ground, and here's the roots. Okay. Now, where do negative emotions, first of all, what are the most popular negative emotions? There's about 54 negative emotions in the textbooks, but the worst of all are fear. Fear is a terrible negative emotion. And then there is a doubt, which we talked about before. That's a killer. And then there's envy, which goes along with resentment. Envy and resentment are like twin sisters that go around together. Because if you envy somebody their success, you resent them their success. And of course there's jealousy, what Shakespeare called the green-eyed monster. Jealousy is a terrible thing, which comes from low self-esteem. People experience jealousy when they feel that I'm not good enough. And then there's hatred. And then worst of all, there's anger. Now, we know that the roots of the negative emotion tree, and by the way, there's lots more, but the roots of the negative emotion tree are two things. They are, first of all, I'll put this up here, they are justification. What we find is that it is impossible to have a negative emotion or a negative feeling of any kind unless you can justify it, unless you can explain why you are entitled to this negative emotion. Why what someone else has done or not done entitles you to this negative emotion. So if we stop justifying, in the Bible, which is a book on psychological and spiritual development, in the Bible, in the Sermon on the Mount, it says, judge not that you be not judged. You see, because if you judge, you become a hanging judge, you automatically condemn. If you judge and condemn, you justify, create negative emotions. The worst thing of all is it doesn't affect the other person, it affects you. So if we stop justifying, the negative emotion starts to die. The second part is identification. Identification is where you take things personally. And this is very common. We hear of something that happened, we take it personally, we become angry and upset of something that's happened to someone somewhere else. So if you don't justify and tell yourself you're entitled to this emotion, if you don't identify and take it personally, the emotion starts to die. The fruit starts to die. However, what's more important is the trunk of the tree. The trunk of the negative emotion tree is blame. And all negative emotions require, for their survival, blame. If you stop blaming, you stop the negative emotion. And it's almost like your negative emotion tree is like a Christmas tree that's plugged into the wall. If you jerk it out of the wall, and you cut down the trunk, if you stop blaming, all your negative emotions stop. I told you I spent 4,000 hours, spent years studying this subject. I was overwhelmed by its enormity, because the key to your fulfilling your full potential as a human being is to eliminate your negative emotions. Because if you eliminate negative emotions, what's left? Only positive emotions. Happiness, joy, the one common goal that all human beings have is to be happy. To be happy and joyous and loving and feel wonderful about themselves and their relationships. And the only thing that impairs that is negative emotions. And these negative emotions we'll talk about in a second are learned. So the key is to stop blaming. And the way that you stop blaming is with a very simple 3-word neutralizer or zapper, and it is the words, I am responsible. I am responsible. So say it. Say, I am responsible.
I am responsible.
So from now on, whenever you think of anything that makes you mad, just say, wait a minute, I'm responsible. I'm responsible. I'm responsible. You see, your mind can only hold one thought at a time, positive or negative. It cannot hold the thought of responsibility and the thought of anger at the same time. Now, people are going to give me every conceivable response to this position, because nobody wants to give up their negative emotions. Doggone it, you've paid for those negative emotions. You've spent years keeping them alive and fertilizing them and justifying them and talking them over with other people and putting water on them and thinking about them and so on. People love their negative emotions. To get them away, you almost need a crowbar to get people to give up their negative emotions. In fact, what we have found is that if you have just one negative emotion that you will not part with, that alone can sabotage your whole life. So the starting point of your achieving the greatness that is possible for you is to get rid of the negative emotions. So when we talk about I am responsible, your ability to respond in an effective way is the critical measure of how much you become as a human being. In other words, if you can respond effectively to crises, problems, upsets, which may not be legally your fault, if you can respond positively and effectively, it means that you've come a long way. It means you've become one of the best developed human beings on our planet. Because average human beings fall apart, get angry, blow up, go into chaos, throw fits, have tears, threaten to sue, and pour drink down their throat and everything else when they have a reversal. But not top people. Top people say, stay calm here. What's happened? Let's look at it. What do we do now? What's our next action, and so on. So by saying I am responsible, whenever you feel something angry, you neutralize the negative emotion. If you keep repeating the words I am responsible over and over again, pretty soon they become an automatic mantra. Something happens, you start to become angry, you instantly say, wait a minute, I'm responsible. So we know that no child is born with any negative emotions. Children come into the world and they have an incredible need for love. Love is the most powerful need that children have. Child needs love like roses need rain. They come in completely pure. They have no negative emotions at all, except for two. They have only two fears: fears of falling and fears of loud noises. All other negative emotions must be taught to the child from childhood. When a child comes into the world, they have two wonderful characteristics. First of all, they're completely uninhibited. They laugh, they puke, they pee, they poop, they cry, they do whatever they want. In other words, they're completely uninhibited. They have no inhibitions at all. As far as the child's concerned, the child can do anything. I can do anything. These are the words of the early child. The second characteristic a child comes into the world with is they're completely spontaneous. They do exactly what they want, they say what they want, they cry, they gurgle, they pee, they squeal, they play, they do whatever they want. They say, I don't have to do anything. You notice that with children? I don't have to. And so these are the two characteristics. Very early in life, because of mistakes that parents make in upbringing, especially destructive criticism and conditional love or withdrawn love, children begin to develop the two major clusters of negative habit patterns from which all others come. Almost emotional cancers, if you like. The first is they develop the inhibited negative habit pattern, or inhibitive negative habit pattern. The inhibitive negative habit pattern is characterized by the words, I can't. When the child is young, the child wants to touch and taste and smell and feel and get anything and touch things and grab knives and crawl around and run out in traffic. And parents often say, don't, get away from there, stop that, put that down. How many times have I told you? And they punish the child, at an early age when the child is incapable of comprehending why the parent is getting so upset. All the child hears is the parent's angry voice, and sometimes the physical punishment and the shouting and the putting in their bedroom or putting in their crib. The child at a very early age starts to develop this idea, I'm too little, I'm small, I'm incompetent, I'm incapable, I can't. So every time they try something, they get a spank or a punishment, I can't. What happens is that this child begins to form this impression that I can't, and as the child grows, the child begins to extend it to the rest of the world. I can't learn this, I can't do this, I can't get a good grade, I can't get a good job, I can't form a good relationship. As adults, whenever the child is confronted with a new risky proposition for which there's no guarantees, the natural response is, I can't. What if I lose? What if it costs me money? We call this the fear of failure. And the fear of failure is the greatest single obstacle to success in adult life. Now here's an interesting thing, physiologically, is the fears are actually experienced in the human body. And we feel it first of all in the solar plexus, then in the heart, then in the throat, then in the head, and sometimes in the bladder. Well, the next negative habit pattern, number 2, is called the compulsive negative habit pattern. And the compulsive negative habit pattern, which is the second constellation, is characterized by the words, I have to. And it's associated with what we call the fear of rejection. The fear of rejection, the fear of criticism, the fear of disapproval, which is terribly important to us as members of a society. And the compulsive negative habit pattern is trained into children when they are told at an early age, if you don't, you're going to get this. If you don't do this, then this. And what it's associated with is what is called conditional love. Now, since children need love more than anything else, the threat of taking away the love and approval is terrifying to the child. Terrifies the child. It actually traumatizes the child to have their love taken away. Children need love the way that we need oxygen, or that the patient needs blood. If you pull away the love or give it back and pull it away like this, the child goes into a constant state of turmoil emotionally. As adults, they are hypersensitive to the reactions of others. They can't make any decisions for fear that others will disapprove of it. They are extremely worried about what others may say. They're concerned about the Joneses and everything else. They are so concerned about what others may do that they don't have a mind of their own. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And this always goes back to childhood and to conditional love, where the love was given and taken away, or maybe never given at all. And what it does, it traumatizes the child. Now, the worst of all, which is what affects most adults, is I have to, but I can't. I can't, but I have to. I have to, but I can't. And they're torn back and forth. Most illnesses, you know, in our society is psychosomatic in origin. Psycho, the mind, makes soma, the body, sick. Prolonged confrontation with these fears makes you physically ill. It actually changes your blood chemistry. It leads to ulcers. It leads to diseases as serious as cancer, strokes, phlebitis, internal congestions. Most skin breakouts are caused by anger and by negative emotions. Most of the problems in our bodies can be associated back one way or another to these. So the antidote to these is whenever you think of something that you want to do, you say, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Say, I can do it. And say, when you repeat this, say, I can do it. I can do it. Whenever you think of anything, picking up the phone, calling the customer, taking a chance, just say to yourself, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And what it does is each time you say that, your fears go down and your confidence goes up. It's almost like they're on a teeter-totter. As you build your confidence, your fears go down. And whenever you feel under compulsion, just say, I don't have to. I don't have to. I choose to do this, but I don't have to. I don't have to. I don't have to. So, one of the critical manifestations of negative emotions that deflates our self-confidence, and you notice this, all these fears hold back our self-confidence. Fears we can't, fears we have to, fears we have to please other people won't like us, we may lose our time or money. All they translate into the worst, one of the worst of negative emotions, which is guilt. Guilt goes around with her twin sister, unworthiness. Is we feel unworthy. Now, it's interesting is that no child grows up with guilt. Most of the main religions in the world have, at a very early stage, inculcated guilt as a fundamental part of their teachings. And they use it at a very early age because the easiest way to control people is with guilt. So there's two reasons why guilt is practiced deliberately. One is for control, and the other is for manipulation. And control and manipulation, why? It's because they work. If you can get your children to feel guilty at an early age, you can control them like on a fishing string for the rest of your life. And what you do it, first of all, we use destructive criticism. Destructive criticism, and if you criticize them a lot when they're young, they'll feel broken down, their self-confidence is down, their self-esteem is down, and then you use guilt to manipulate them. And the way that you deal with guilt is when anybody ever tries to use guilt on you, you say, excuse me, are you trying to make me feel guilty? And you smile. And they'll say, oh, no, because nobody will admit it. At least not the first few times. You say, that's great, because it doesn't work on me. Guilt doesn't work on me. Oh, good. And then they'll try it again, mother. And you say, excuse me, are you trying to make me feel guilty again? No. And finally, she'll say, yes, I am. You say, well, it's not going to work. It worked in the past, it doesn't work now. Is always say when a person says anything, are you trying to make me feel guilty? That immediately stops the game. The game only works if it's underground. As soon as you bring it up and put it on the table, the game stops. And you don't allow people to make you feel guilty, because guilt is totally destructive. It destroys your soul. It undermines your self-confidence. So the way that we get rid of guilt, and we'll talk about this in a couple of seconds, the final principle I have to teach you is the most important principle in self-confidence, the most important principle in personal development, and it's based around another law, and it's the law of forgiveness. The law of forgiveness. Now, the law of forgiveness says that you are a healthy person to the degree to which you can freely forgive and forget offenses against you. To the degree to which you cannot, you move down the human totem pole and you become a less and less person. A person who can forgive nothing is a person who's totally destroyed psychologically and emotionally. So how do you deal with forgiveness? Number one, forgive your parents. You do not become an adult until you have forgiven your parents 100% for every mistake they ever made. Remember, it's never too late to have a happy childhood, so just go back and forgive your parents. If they're no longer with you, forgive them and let them go. So the second thing, forgive any relationship that you ever had that didn't work out. Now this is hard because it's so personal and it's so painful. But if you can forgive your parents, it's a real good warm-up. Most people are still mad at their parents in their 50s. If you then forgive every previous relationship, you accept that you were at least partially responsible for getting into the relationship. You were definitely responsible for staying in the relationship. You just say, I am responsible, I am responsible, I am responsible. I bless them and let them go. And just let it go. Because in letting them go, you set yourself free. By not letting them go, you're keeping yourself in prison, in an emotional prison. The third thing that you can do is forgive everybody else. Forgive everyone else in your life that has ever hurt you in any way. Every past childhood slight, every sibling, every person in your family, every person you ever worked for, every lousy boss or person who cheated you, lied to you, robbed you, and everything else, and so on. I mean, just let it go. Just let it go. Remember, it's a selfish act. You're doing it for yourself. And finally, number 4, this is really critical, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Now, I have it on good authority. I've done some research on you before you came here. And I find that every single person here has done some wicked, senseless, brainless, foolish, cruel, idiotic, stupid things in their life. Is that true? Say yes. Okay. Let it go. And please understand this, the person who did those things no longer lives, no longer exists. The person you were in the past is a different person than you are today. The person you are today wouldn't do those things because you now have wisdom, you have hindsight, you have intelligence, you understand consequences. So the person you are today is a different person from the person you were back then. So don't keep beating yourself up because that other person, another person, did something that today you disapprove of. All right? Just let yourself go. Let yourself off the hook. And when you let it all go, it's almost like a huge burden off your back. You just forgive everybody and you forgive everything, and on a go-forward basis, you just forgive everybody. You don't have any negativities at all. No negativity toward anybody. You're just a positive person. And if you'll do that, if you accept responsibility, like yourself, and forgive everyone else, you become a truly superior person. Most amazing darn thing. Now, learned helplessness is one of the greatest enemies of success in our lifetime. And learned helplessness, based on 25 years of research and millions of dollars at the University of Pennsylvania, is one of the greatest killers of human success, is we learn to be helpless. They have done a whole series of experiments, but one, they took a dog and they put a piece of glass in the middle of a cage, and on one side they put the dog, the other side a delicious piece of meat. And the dog would throw itself at the glass and hurt its nose, and throw itself at the glass and hurt its nose. Throw itself 3 or 4 times at the glass and hurt its nose. Then they take the dog away, and the next day they put them back with the dog and the meat. They did this for 3 or 4 days, and by the 3rd or 4th day, the dog would just sit there passively and not throw itself at the glass because it didn't want to hurt its nose. Then the next day, they just removed the glass and put the dog in the cage next to the meat. And the dog, with the stomach growling and rumbling, would lay there right next to the meat and never reach for it. The dog had been trained to be helpless. The dog believed that it could not get to the meat, so even though there was nothing in the way, the dog just sat there. They did a study with, they did 25 years of this. They took a bunch of university students and they put them into a room. They said, you can leave this room whenever you like. It's up to you, and that's the only instructions that you have. So they went into the room, and the room had several doors, and they closed the doors, and the students went around and checked the doors. The doors were all locked from the outside. As soon as they finished checking, they went and sat down, and then they began to play music. Loud music, terrible music, broken glass, trash can music, outrageous music. And they began to increase the temperature in the room. They let a foul odor into the room. And so you had this music and this odor and this heat and everything else, and the students just all sat there. Even though the doors had been unlocked as soon as they tried them, the doors were unlocked, they could have left at any time. They had learned to be helpless with one experience. They say humans can learn to be helpless with a single experience. They can try something and instantly conclude, I can't do that. I'm not capable of it. I can't play a sport, can't cook a dish, can't type, can't work a telephone. They instantly conclude that they can't do it. And for the rest of their lives, they're helpless. Now, here's an interesting point. Remember, it's not what a man knows what hurts him, it's what he knows what ain't true. And have you ever had an experience where you felt you couldn't do something and then somebody showed you how to do it properly and you found you could do it quite easily? And suddenly your whole belief system changed. Up to that time, you'd always believed you couldn't do it. From that point forward, you believe that you could for the rest of your life. We talked earlier about self-limiting beliefs. One of the self-limiting beliefs is that we are not capable of doing something. We feel learned helplessness. So it's very important that you ask this question, is it true that I can't do it? And the fact is that if hundreds of thousands of millions of other people could ski or skydive or sell or invest in real estate or build businesses, you can do it as well. Don't ever sell yourself short and conclude that you're helpless. Now, the other problem that people have has to do with Sammy the rat. And Sammy the rat, they took Sammy the rat and they put him into a cage. And on the outside of this cage, there were 4 tunnels. And they waited till Sammy was hungry, and then they put some cheese, a little bit of cheese, at the mouth of the 4th tunnel. Right? Well, when they put Sammy, his little Sammy, into the cage, here he is, put him into the cage, Sammy's hungry, sniffs around, there's cheese around here somewhere, he explores around, and finds the cheese. Eats the cheese and is happy. Take him out of the cage, keep him for 24 hours, he's hungry again, put him back in the cage, and the cheese is there. And Sammy explores, but not as much, and he eventually gets to the cheese. The next day, put Sammy in the cage, Sammy goes straight to the cheese and eats it, and is happy. Then the researchers take the cheese and they move it a little bit further back in the tunnel. Well, Sammy's put into the cage the 4th day. He goes running up to the tunnel. There's no cheese. He looks up at the researchers, says, "Where's my cheese?" Right? No. So he sniffs around. Sammy goes to the 2nd tunnel and the 3rd tunnel, and the 1st tunnel, whatever. And then finally he comes back and he begins to explore. He smells an odor of cheese, and he works his way back and he finds the cheese, comes out, and he's happy again. So then the next day they move it further back and eventually all the way to the back of the tunnel. Now Sammy comes into the cage, beep beep, goes straight across, goes into the tunnel, all the way to the back, gets the cheese, comes out, and is happy. Then they take the cheese and they move it and they put it in the back of the 2nd tunnel.